It was raining that morning, not a heavy downpour, but the kind of persistent, silvery drizzle that seemed to seep through your skin and settle in your bones. The streets of the city glistened with a thin coat of water, every car's reflection smeared like a watercolor painting. I stood under the rusted awning of the bus stop, clutching the folded paper in my hand, half a classified ad, half a promise. Male models wanted, no experience necessary. High pay. Confidential shoot. Serious inquiries only. There was no company name. Just a number and an address scribbled in fine black ink. I should have known then. But desperation makes you ignore things. It makes you fold up your instincts like old receipts and shove them into your back pocket. Rent was due. My fridge had more empty shelves than food. And I hadn't told my parents I'd dropped out of university last semester. They still thought I was studying engineering, not working part-time folding t-shirts at a mall with mannequins that had more personality than most people I knew. I took the subway to the edge of the industrial district, where buildings looked abandoned even when they weren't. The kind of place you pass without really looking. When I reached the address, it was a narrow brick warehouse with no sign out front. The windows were covered in thick black film, and the buzzer at the door didn't have a name, just a smudged number, 7. I hovered for a moment. My heart did this strange lurching thing, like it was trying to get my attention. But I pressed the buzzer anyway. The door clicked open without a word. Inside it was dim. The hallway smelled faintly of cigarette smoke and aftershave, sharp, masculine, and old. My sneakers squeaked on the concrete floor as I walked toward the light at the end of the corridor. That's when I saw him. He was tall. Older, maybe in his late 30s, with that kind of clean-shaven face that still hinted at stubble. He wore a black button-up shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, and his forearms were tanned and veined like he worked with his hands. He didn't smile, but his eyes lingered on me a little too long. "You came for the ad?" His voice was calm, deep, like someone narrating a nature documentary. He didn't introduce himself. I nodded, swallowing hard. "Take off your jacket." I hesitated, fingers stiff with cold, or maybe it was nerves. "It's for your profile," he said, softer now. "You'll be comfortable. Promise." The walls were lined with framed photographs. All black and white. All men. Some clothed. Some not. Some looking directly into the lens with eyes wide and haunted, like they'd been caught off guard. Others smiling, almost seductively, like they knew exactly what they were doing. And yet, not one name. No credits. No logos. No agency branding. Why did I feel like I recognized one of the faces? Was that Evan? From my dorm? I opened my mouth to ask, but he was already stepping closer, hand outstretched, palm open as if expecting me to hand over more than just my jacket. And I did. But as the zipper slid down and the silence thickened between us, one thought started to gnaw at the back of my mind. What exactly had I walked into? He led me through a steel door at the end of the hallway. It hissed softly as it closed behind us, sealing out the gray morning and the rest of the world. The studio was nothing like I expected. The room was huge, warehouse-sized, but everything inside was meticulously arranged. Softbox lights hung from ceiling rigs. Backdrops were rolled down in layers, black velvet, concrete gray, a faded sky blue. Along the left wall sat a long leather couch, low to the floor, looking too clean for this part of town. There were mirrors everywhere, some full-length, some broken at the edges. One had a smear across it like a handprint that had never been cleaned off. He gestured for me to sit. I obeyed. "I'm Marcus," he finally said, opening a slim black portfolio. "What's your name?" "Jamie." He wrote it down with a silver pen, the kind people give as gifts at graduations. "Age?" 21. He glanced up. "You look younger." I didn't know if that was a compliment or a concern. He jotted something else. "Good. We like that." There was that we. I hadn't seen anyone else here yet. No assistants. No photographers. Just him and the quiet buzz of the lights above. "Ever modeled before?" he asked, still writing. I shook my head. "No." "You nervous?" I hesitated. "A little." He finally smiled. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it made his face softer. Good. That reads better on camera. He stood suddenly and walked over to a tall black cabinet. From it, he pulled out a bottle of water, handed it to me. The label had been peeled off. You need to stay hydrated. Some of the shots take time. I unscrewed the cap, my fingers trembling slightly. I didn't drink it. Not yet. I want to start with just some basic shots, he said. Nothing too demanding. You'll stand over there, by the window. The window wasn't a window exactly, just a fake one frame, backlit to simulate daylight. The light behind it flickered once, then held steady. I stood where he directed me, between the edge of the couch and the wall with the broken mirror. I could see my reflection, small, uncertain, too thin in the shoulders. My breath fogged faintly on the cool air. Now take off your shirt. I looked at him. Just your shirt. Let's see your shape. I hesitated, again. The silence in the room seemed to lean forward, waiting. I pulled it over my head and dropped it on the couch behind me. The skin on my chest prickled in the cold. Marcus adjusted the camera on the tripod. His hands were methodical, practiced. He didn't speak for a long time. Just clicked. Stepped forward. Clicked again. You have good collarbones, he said quietly. Strong neck. Thanks, I murmured, unsure if I was supposed to respond. Look up. Slightly to the left. Another click. He moved closer this time. Not with the camera, just him. I could see the tiny scar above his eyebrow, a pale crescent. You're comfortable with your body? I guess, I said. Sometimes. Marcus tilted his head, thoughtful. I can work with that. He circled me slowly. I felt like I was being studied, dissected in slow motion. I wanted to ask more questions, but I was afraid of what the answers might be. What's this scar? He asked, running a finger just above my left hip. I flinched. Bike accident. When I was 15. He nodded, touched it again briefly. It adds character. Imperfection photographs well. I didn't know how to feel about that. Then he stepped back and clicked something on his phone. A soft buzz. Somewhere behind the couch, a second light turned on, warmer, golden. It changed the whole atmosphere of the room. Suddenly it felt more intimate. More like a bedroom than a studio. We'll do a few reclining shots. I hesitated. Like, lying down? Yeah, he said. Nothing graphic. Just posture and light. I moved toward the couch, and that's when I noticed the camera wasn't on the tripod anymore. He was holding it now. Closer. He didn't say pose. Just relax. I laid back, resting on one elbow. My shirtless torso half-turned toward the warm light. It reminded me of summer afternoons, of sun through curtains and hands that lingered too long. Marcus stepped closer. He didn't say anything for a long time. The camera clicked once, then again. Then he said, "You're not straight, are you?" The question dropped like a stone. I blinked. No. He nodded. I can tell. It's in the way you hold your body. The way your eyes move. I didn't respond. My mouth felt dry. I still hadn't taken a sip of the water. It's not a problem, Marcus added. It's actually better for the kind of work we do here. That we again. What kind of work is that? I asked carefully. He paused, then crouched slightly so we were eye level. Honest work, he said. But not everyone's ready for it. There's no shame in walking away. I sat up a little. You mean like nude modeling? His eyes didn't leave mine. Sometimes. But it's not just about nudity. It's about vulnerability. That's what sells. Not just skin. Emotion. Exposure. My stomach tightened. I could hear a low hum in the walls, or maybe it was just in my ears. Marcus stood again. You have potential. But you have to trust me. I don't know you. He looked at me for a long time. Then said quietly, you will. There was something about the way he said it. Not threatening. Not exactly. But final. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded paper, a release form. No logo. Just lines. A signature box at the bottom. I can pay you $500 for today. If you're willing to go further. My fingers hovered above the form. $500. That was groceries. Electricity. A real dent in my rent. What does further to mean? Marcus leaned against the wall, folding his arms. You let me direct. I guide the shoot. You follow. Nothing illegal. Nothing recorded without consent. But I will push you. My throat felt tight. And if I say no? Then you leave. And you keep the water bottle, he said, almost smiling. No pressure. I glanced down. The water sat unopened in my lap, labelless, harmless looking. My reflection in the broken mirror watched me. I had always wondered what it would feel like, to be seen, really seen. To be wanted. To be desired for more than being the smart kid in high school, or the one with the neat handwriting and bad skin. But there was something else behind Marcus's calm. Something that didn't quite fit. A framed photo on the far wall caught my eye. A new one. A boy sitting on the same couch. Younger than me. Big brown eyes. Shirtless. Familiar. Too familiar. I leaned in, breath catching. The scar. The hip. Was that my cousin Nate? I hadn't seen him since he disappeared 3 years ago. After he dropped out. After the rumors. After the silence. Marcus followed my gaze. You know him? My voice was thin. Where is he? Marcus didn't answer. He just stepped forward, gently placed the pen in my hand and said, Sign it. Or walk out that door. And suddenly, the only sound in the room was my own heartbeat. I didn't sign the form, not yet. But I didn't leave either. Marcus didn't rush me. He just stood there, one hand resting on the back of the couch, his eyes fixed on mine like he was waiting to see who I would become. The version of myself who needed the money, or the one who needed something else entirely. I looked at the photo again. Nate's expression was unreadable. Half lost, half seduced. Was it real? Was it posed? Was he safe? I haven't seen him in years, I murmured. Marcus's voice was low. He was good. Very open. Very natural. Some boys have to be coached, but not him. He came alive under the lens. My skin crawled. Where is he now? I asked. He tilted his head. Moved on. That's the nature of this business. Some stay. Some disappear. Something inside me snapped. Disappeared? Relax, Jamie, he said, holding up his hands like I was the one being unreasonable. No one's forcing you. But let's not pretend you don't want this on some level. I swallowed hard. Want what? To be seen. To be wanted. His words were gentle, coaxing. You wouldn't have come here if you didn't crave that kind of attention. I saw it the moment you stepped in. I turned away from him, from the lights, from the mirror with the smeared handprint. I'm not like that, I said quietly. You don't even know what that means, he replied, stepping closer. There's no shame here. Shame is what you carry when you pretend to be something you're not. His hand touched my shoulder. Just a brush. Not rough. Not overt. But I felt it all the way through my spine. You're different, he said. You're tense. Like you're always bracing for something. Let it go. I won't hurt you. But that was exactly the problem. He hadn't hurt me. He was patient. Soft-spoken. Even kind in his own way. And somehow that made it worse. I don't want to take everything off, I said, barely louder than a whisper. Then don't, he said, not missing a beat. We can work with limits. But limits are only real when they're tested. He moved to the light switch and dimmed the room. The fake window behind me glowed softer now, almost orange. Like late afternoon light bleeding into dusk. It made the room feel smaller, warmer, but also more dangerous. He picked up the camera again, this time without asking. He just started shooting, me standing, me half-turned, me sitting on the armrest, bare-chested and unsure. At one point he said, "Put your hand over your heart." I did. Now close your eyes. Imagine you're telling someone you love them, and you're afraid they won't say it back. The ache that surfaced in my chest was immediate, unexpected. The image of someone, vague, half-formed, flickered behind my eyelids. A boy I had kissed once in high school, under bleachers, in the dark. He never spoke to me again. And I never told anyone. I opened my eyes. Marcus was closer now. No camera between us. "Why are you really here, Jamie?" he asked. I didn't answer. I didn't know anymore. He reached up and adjusted a strand of my hair, smoothing it behind my ear. You have this sadness in you, he said. Like you're waiting for permission to fall apart. His voice was hypnotic, like the tide pulling you just past the point where you can stand. Then he whispered, I can give you that. And suddenly he was kissing me. Not rough, not possessive, but intimate, slow and searching. My body froze, but my mouth didn't pull away. It responded, tentatively. A ghost of pressure. The kiss lingered. And when he pulled back, I felt exposed in a way I hadn't expected. Not because of my skin. Because of what I'd let happen. Don't overthink it, he said, reading the panic that was blooming behind my eyes. You wanted it. Did I? Had I? The worst part was, I couldn't tell. I wanted something. Connection. Maybe just to not feel invisible for once. But this wasn't what I'd imagined. It wasn't soft or earned or real. It was given too easily. It was manipulation, dressed in the clothes of intimacy. I stepped back. I need a break. Marcus didn't protest. Just nodded toward the far side of the studio. There's a bathroom through that curtain. I pushed through the heavy black drape and found myself in a narrow hallway, barely lit. The bathroom was small, cold, and smelled like cleaning fluid. I locked the door behind me and leaned against the sink, breathing hard. I looked at myself in the mirror. My lips were still slightly parted. My chest rose and felt like I'd run a mile. I didn't recognize my own expression. There was guilt in it. And something darker. I splashed cold water on my face. My shirt lay in the other room. I had to go back out. That's when I noticed it. A door. Slightly ajar. Down the hallway, opposite the bathroom. I don't know what made me move toward it. Curiosity. Instinct. Something deeper. I pushed the door open. Inside was a second room, darker, cooler. No lights. Just shelves. Boxes. A rack of clothing, underwear, tank tops, belts. Some tagged with names. Some without. And then I saw the photos. Polaroids. Dozens of them. Taped to the walls in uneven rows. Naked boys. Half naked. Some laughing. Some crying. One biting his lips so hard it bled. Another looking straight into the lens with an expression so hollow it made me step back. My cousin Nate's photo was there too. But not the same one from the studio. This one was different. He was looking away. One eye swollen. Lip bruised. I didn't hear Marcus enter. But I felt him behind me. You weren't supposed to see this, he said, voice low, no longer gentle. I turned my mouth dry. What is this? He stepped forward, slowly closing the distance between us. The truth, he said. What this place really is. I stepped backward, almost tripping over a storage crate. The air in the room felt thinner here, like it had already been breathed too many times. My heart was pounding so loudly I swore Marcus could hear it. Why would you keep these? I asked, but the question felt useless the moment it left my mouth. My voice cracked, thin, accusatory, but not strong. Not enough. Marcus didn't answer right away. He simply leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, as if this was all some kind of test and I just failed the first part. Control, he said finally. That's the answer. It always is. I wanted to leave, I really did. But I didn't move. I just stared at the photo of Nate. My cousin. My blood. The bruised corner of his mouth. The frightened set of his eyes. So much pain in something so small. What did you do to him? I asked. Marcus exhaled sharply through his nose. Not quite a laugh, not quite contempt. Nothing he didn't agree to, he said. That's the part you won't understand until later. Something in his voice chilled me. It wasn't angry or defensive. It was calm. Like someone explaining gravity. A truth he lived by and never questioned. I brushed my fingers against the edge of Nate's Polaroid. You hurt him. No, he said. You did. You left. You disappeared from his life when he needed you. I was there. I gave him something to hold on to. He came to me. My stomach turned. I wanted to scream at him, tell him how twisted that was, but I didn't. Because a small, venomous part of me wondered if he was right. I had left. After Nate came out at 17, after his dad kicked him out, after he texted me late one night asking if he could crash at my place. I'd ignored it, told myself I was busy, that I wasn't ready to get pulled into his chaos. I told myself he was someone else's problem. But maybe he wasn't. Maybe he'd been mine. Marcus stepped closer, and this time, I didn't flinch. He moved slowly, deliberately. His hand rose, not to strike, but to touch. His fingers brushed the side of my face. I was too stunned, too shaken, too paralyzed to move. "You feel it now, don't you?" he whispered. "The hunger. Not for me, don't flatter me. For something deeper. For power. For release. For truth." I didn't answer. My throat was tight, my tongue heavy. He leaned in closer. His lips almost touched my ear. "I can take you further than he ever went," he whispered. "You think this is the end, Jamie? This is just the first page." My body was tense, locked up, but my mind was doing something far worse. It was considering it. What would it mean to say yes? To fall, not because I was pushed, but because I wanted to? Was that weakness? Or freedom? "I should go," I said, but the words sounded flat, performative. Even to me. Marcus didn't move. "Then go." His breath was warm against my cheek. "But you won't." He stepped away finally, leaving the door open behind him. I could see the dim studio lights spilling across the hallway now. A golden, fake kind of light. It looked like sunlight, but it wasn't. I stood there another full minute, staring at the photos. At the tangled truths they contained. I didn't know what was real anymore. The bruises, the smiles, the blurred lines between choice and coercion. I finally left the room and stepped back into the main studio. My shirt was still on the couch, folded neatly, like nothing had happened. I picked it up with shaking hands. Marcus was back at his desk, flipping through something on his monitor. He didn't look at me. Didn't say a word. As I pulled the shirt over my head, I felt the lingering weight of his eyes, even though they were no longer watching me. I moved toward the door, then paused. "Nate, is he okay now?" A beat of silence. Marcus didn't look away from the screen. Define okay. And just like that I left. But as I stepped into the stairwell, something echoed in my mind. His voice. The way he said, "You won't." I didn't know if he meant I wouldn't leave, or if I wouldn't stay gone. Either way, I wasn't sure he was wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling for hours, tracing cracks in the plaster, replaying every detail of Marcus's voice, his eyes, his touch. Every flicker of fear and the sick, sinking warmth that came with it. I hated how close those feelings lived inside me, how sometimes they were indistinguishable. The next morning, I sat at the edge of my bed and stared at my phone for a long time. I didn't know what I was hoping to find. A message from Nate? A warning? A confession? Nothing came. I searched for his old number. Disconnected. His social media was inactive. A shadow where a person should have been. The only digital trace of him was a tagged photo from 3 years ago. Blurry. A rooftop. Someone's hand gripping his wrist too tight. A comment beneath it, "Miss you, freak." That was it. I closed the tab. Later, I passed the mirror and caught my reflection. My mouth was tight, my shoulders stiff. I still wore the same jeans from the studio. I hadn't noticed until now. There was a faint smudge on the collar, foundation or something else. I didn't want to think about it. What was I doing there? I could lie and say it was just about money, about the job, but that excuse had worn thin. There was something else. Something I'd touched that day and couldn't let go of. 3 days passed. Then the envelope arrived. No name. Just my apartment number scribbled in thick black ink. Inside, 5 photos. Me, bare-chested, looking away from the lens, hand over heart. Another, eyes closed, biting my lip. So vulnerable. The last one was different. I was looking directly at the camera. Expression unreadable. Almost defiant. On the back, in neat, handwritten script. "You're not who you think you are." No return address. I burned the photos. I watched the flames curl the edges and consume my own face. It felt like a baptism, or maybe a betrayal. I didn't know which. The next morning, I sat at my laptop and opened a blank email. To Marcus. Then I closed it, deleted it, reopened it, typed, "I think we need to talk." Deleted it again. Typed, "I'm not coming back." Hovered. Then finally, "What happened to Nate?" I stared at the cursor blinking. The question stared back, heavier than anything I'd written before. But I didn't hit send. Because I already knew, whatever answer came back, it wouldn't give me peace. Only choice. That night, I lay awake again. And somewhere, buried in a drawer beside my bed, was the original business card. Black lettering on white. Portfolio Modeling Group, Marcus Delaney. I should have thrown it out. I didn't. I held it in my hand, long after the lights were off, long after the street outside had gone quiet. And still, I couldn't decide. Was I afraid of him? Or afraid of what I might become in his world? The line was blurred now. And I wasn't sure I wanted it to come back into focus. When I first saw the ad, it didn't even seem real. A clean, minimalist poster taped to a metal street lamp, flapping quietly in the wind like it was whispering to me. Seeking male models. No experience needed. Portfolio included. Discretion expected. I stood there for a moment, gripping my coffee tighter, watching the paper sway. The font was tasteful. Serif. The kind you'd expect on a gallery wall or a memorial plaque. I took a photo of it without thinking. I didn't need a modeling job. I didn't even know why I was still standing there. But I couldn't stop staring. I'd walked this route 100 times, down Broadview, past the art supply store with the dusty window displays, then cutting through the alley behind the vape shop to catch the 506. But that flyer? That was new. It didn't belong here. Or maybe I didn't. By noon I'd looked at the photo 6 times. It was a slow Monday. I worked remote for a logistics company that mostly pretended to need me. The spreadsheet I was meant to finish sat untouched. My finger hovered over the number written on the ad. Curiosity got the better of me. The voice that answered was warm. Almost too calm. Like he knew I'd call. Marcus speaking. I cleared my throat. Hi, this is about the modeling? The pause. Not long, but meaningful. I thought it might be, he said. You sound interesting. He gave me the address, an old warehouse converted into a studio in the East End, near the old sugar mill. Said I could come by that afternoon, if I was serious. I said I was. I wasn't sure if I was lying. The studio was hard to find. There were no signs. No names on the buzzer. Just a faded steel door with chipped white paint. I had to push it open with my shoulder. It stuck halfway like it didn't want to let me in. Inside smelled like dust and jasmine. A strange combination. Cold light filtered through the tall warehouse windows, catching in floating specks of something I didn't want to identify. Everything felt too still, like I had stepped inside a paused memory. Marcus greeted me barefoot. Crisp black shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbow. No camera around his neck, just a small silver remote in his palm. You're early, he said, glancing at the clock behind him. I wasn't sure how long it'd take. He smiled. Punctuality's attractive. That word hung in the air. Attractive, long enough to feel intentional. He asked me to sit. Offered water. Didn't ask for a resume. Instead, he watched me. Do you feel comfortable in your own skin, Jamie? I blinked. What? He gestured vaguely, almost dismissively. Your body. Do you feel it? Do you own it? I didn't answer. I didn't know how. The silence stretched. Then he said something that made my stomach flutter, and not in a good way. You seem like someone who wants to be seen, but is terrified of what they'll find. The way he said it, it wasn't a question. It was a dare. And maybe that's why I stayed. I didn't know then what kind of photos he took. Or what had happened to the last boy who answered the same ad. But I was about to find out. And I wasn't sure I wanted to stop it. The rain had stopped about an hour ago, but the streets still glistened, wet asphalt reflecting soft neon from the all-night diner across the road. I stood at my window, shirtless, a towel wrapped loosely around my waist, and watched the city breathe. Nights like this always felt lonely in a cinematic way. Not sad, exactly, just hollow, like something was supposed to happen and hadn't. My studio apartment smelled faintly of eucalyptus and burnt coffee. I'd fallen asleep with a candle still flickering in the corner, its wax pooling unevenly in the ceramic dish like it was trying to escape. The ticking of the kitchen clock was the only sound, quiet but relentless. Outside, the 2 a.m. hush gave the world a strange clarity, like everything was paused, suspended in glass. I'd been out of work for 3 weeks. Well, not exactly out of work. On paper, I was still freelancing. Photo editing, touch-up gigs, design work from faceless clients who barely knew my name. But lately, even the scams had stopped emailing. There's something humiliating about refreshing your inbox and finding nothing. That's probably why I opened the app. Not Grindr. Not Tinder either. This one was different. Model Connect, art, expression, exposure. The ad read like a koan. Seeking open-minded individuals. No limits. Must be willing to surrender image. I remember laughing at it, thinking it sounded like a cult. But then I clicked. Just curiosity. Or boredom. I filled out the form, no last name, no ID check. Just a photo. Shirtless. I hesitated for a second before snapping one in the mirror. My skin still damp from the shower, hair falling across my eyes just the right way. I told myself it didn't matter. I hit send. 3 minutes later, a reply. No name. No company. Just a location and time. Tomorrow. 4 p.m. Come alone. The next day was clear and warm for October, the kind of weather that feels like a lie in Toronto. I wore my nicest jeans, a plain white tee. Deodorant. Mouthwash. I even shaved. The address led me to an old industrial building tucked between a dog grooming place and an abandoned bar. I almost walked past it. There was no sign, just a door with peeling red paint and a single buzzer. I pressed it once. Static. Then a voice crackled through, "Come up." That was it. No name. No floor number. Just, "Come up." I climbed 4 flights of narrow stairs, each one creaking louder than the last. At the top was another door, already cracked open. Beyond it, white walls, tall windows, and a room too quiet to be empty. I stepped inside, heart thudding harder than I wanted to admit. A man stood at the far end of the space, half lit by a high window. He didn't look up. He was adjusting a tripod. His sleeves were rolled up, collar open just enough to suggest casual without trying. He finally looked at me and smiled. I was starting to think you'd chicken out. His voice was soft. His eyes weren't. I didn't know who he was. I didn't ask how he got my photo so fast. And I definitely didn't ask why there were no lights, no assistants, no paperwork, no backdrop, just a single mattress, folded in the corner of the room like it had already been used. So why didn't I leave? Why did I shut the door behind me? And what was I really willing to surrender?